What's happening, everybody? Welcome into Daily Betslip for this Tuesday. I'm Ben Heisler with my guy, Reed Wallach. We are with you for the next 45 minutes, going over our best bets of the night. Of course, a bad beat from Sunday that anybody holding on to a 25-1 future, possibly even higher, Reed, has to be saying to themselves, again? It happened again? We will also dive into how we are looking to handicap the upcoming 2022 NBA draft. This has been a day in the works on Reed Wallach's calendar for the last several months since the moment that the national champion was crowned in college basketball to now heading into the NBA draft. These are guys that Reed has been studying. He knows everything you need to know about them. So any NBA draft questions, please feel free to send them in. And of course, the game of the night, which you can vote on right here on YouTube. You can also do so on Twitter as well at BetSided. The New York Mets, slight underdogs on the road. Reed's New York Mets. Kind of feels like there's a theme to today's show. I think today's show is all about Reed. How did you pull that off?
Because there are certain time periods around the sports calendar that I really, really get pumped about. It's like my Christmas, NFL draft, NBA draft, basically like dumb things, like things that I could just sit and stare at a screen and I could try and parse through information and try and make bets. That those are the things that really get me excited. And the Mets happen to be playing a marquee baseball team in the Houston Astros. So had to, in the pre-production meeting, push that, let's hammer that home so I could talk about the Mets who, last week everyone's talking about the Atlanta Braves making this run at, the Amazons. And all of a sudden, no more Braves talk after they dropped 2 or 3 to the Cubs, and all of a sudden they give back half the games they made up over that winning streak. And, now the Mets, it's another measuring stick series for us as we wait for Max Scherzer and Jacob deGrom to get back.
All the measuring stick series one can possibly afford. That'll be on the docket for today. And not a great pitching matchup, but some possible runs on the board tonight. We'll tell you whether or not we're going on a side, whether or not we're going on a total, and certainly your best bets of the night coming up as well. So make sure you guys vote. If you're watching on Twitter, definitely head on over to the YouTube channel. You can weigh in, give some of your feedback on the show, ask questions, whatever you want to do. But let's dive in. Bad beat of the day, I should suppose, instead of the night. With not a whole lot going on Monday, Reed, I take it that you were tuned in to the U.S. Open and the interesting finish down the stretch once again for Will Zalatoris.
Yeah, I unfortunately had John Rahm, and I kind of had a bad feeling about it after that double on Saturday, taking him out of the outright lead. But I was tuned in, enjoying Father's Day with the family, watching the U.S. Open final, and it seemed like it was heading towards one of those meltdown-driven major finals where no one seems to pull away, and then Fitzpatrick hits that just absolute tank on, 14, I think it was?
Yeah. It was
just an absolute tank of a putt, and he ended up pulling away. But, I mean, the story is Will Zalatoris, and it's first of all, it's a great bet every week because Will Zalatoris is a fantastic golfer, but, I see on, gambling Twitter that, these guys, these poor people sweating out Will Zalatoris, and just every week he seems to lose, still looking for that illustrious first PJ victory. And I thought that putt was going in. He also, I think it's hilarious that he makes putting stroke is. His putting stroke is abysmal.
It was abysmal, but he also hit some big putts down the stretch too. That's why I thought all of a sudden, okay, we might be onto something. He might actually be starting to pull up. And take into consideration that Fitzpatrick took it right into the sand on 18 too. Zalatoris had the far better tee shot. He was set up perfectly to get that one stroke back from Fitzpatrick. And you're talking about two guys who have never once won on the PGA Tour. I know that Fitzpatrick actually was the last winner at Brookline. It was the 2013 U.S. Amateur. So pretty cool to have him come back to that same course. A pretty poetic, if you will. But if you had Zalatoris yet again, I mean, we're talking about now, Reed, 3 majors runner-up. Is there anybody that you can compare him to, across sports, somebody that has just found a way to let it go at the very moment 3 consecutive times? Are we talking like Roy Williams before he got to Carolina, maybe?
I was gonna say the 90s Bills, but Zalatoris is so young, he's gonna get one eventually. maybe the people that bet on him now are going to be broke by then, but eventually he'll win. And that's the issue. Like, I feel this way about certain teams. Like if I bet a team on a losing streak, or if I'm going to bet a golfer like Will Zalatoris, and the same thing with Xander Schauffele too, you have to now keep betting him. Like, you can't miss that first time, because like even if you come out like breaking even, you need to be part of it. You need to be in there. Like, we did this. You are now losing this painfully on these Zalatoris bets. You are now locked in on Will Zalatoris. You're tied to him like a family member.
That's right. Can you imagine like having him for all three of these majors, and then all of a sudden you're like, you know what? I'm done. And then of course, like, that's going to be the time that he wins it. And if that's the case, then you say, okay, I've cut my losses to this point. Like, I'm not going to take him to win the Open, because I was on him maybe once. I wasn't. Yeah. So like, I feel like next Masters, like, that'll be when I'm going to go back to him.
100%.
Like, playing at St. Andrews, like, I always feel like I kind of have to go with the European guy. Just kind of feels like it's par for the course. But yeah, it's just absolutely a rough flow.
To me, like, it's like one of the great conundrums, especially with like long shot bets. You almost feel like like I said, like, you need to keep betting, because you don't want the FOMO of missing the first time. It's almost like taking a first touchdown score. You're like almost tied to the same people over and over and over again. You just keep betting them until they hit. And like, if you lose, you don't want to miss the next one, and that's like the great conundrum with like some of these long shot bets. But yeah, I had Rahm. I thought he was going to be okay. I thought he was going to win. He takes that. He didn't even play well on Saturday. He ends up with the lead. And I'm like, I was about to leave. I was about to leave my like TV. I was like, he's going to par. He's going to par in on 18. Like, this will be fine. All of a sudden, he's in the bunker. I go, okay, just like lay up. It's all good. You're up a stroke. No need to get greedy here. It looked like me. He looked like me hitting that out of the bunker. So, yeah, but shout out Matt Fitzpatrick. I know a few people were on him. I know Ian was on him. He's enjoying his vacation. So, yeah, shout out Matt Fitzpatrick.
Yeah, shout out Matt Fitzpatrick. Shout out Ian, who had both write-ups for Fitzpatrick and Zalatoris on his original preview. By the way, speaking of golf, after us today, you guys should absolutely stick around and hang out for Green on the Greens. It's going to be a really fun episode today. Ian McMillan, as we mentioned, not with us today. He is on vacation. He's back home in Canada. But it'll be Cody Williams and special guest Savannah Richardson. Really looking forward to checking out that show. So make sure you guys, after you're done with us, stick around right here on the BetSided YouTube channel and check out this week's edition of Green on the Greens. If we're giving you winners and runners up, like, there's no reason not to stick around. Absolutely, 100%. Absolutely dynamite job. All right, let's dive into best bets for tonight. You have a couple in Major League Baseball. I have one MLB prop that I have apparently just broken the heart of one of our coworkers, and Joe Summers. I have taken his new idol, new rookie sensation, and I have just trampled on his heart because I'm fading him today. So Joe, if you are watching this, I am absolutely sorry. But Reed, I'll go ahead and kick things off with my best bet in Major League Baseball today, and then I'll toss it to you for two of your favorites. So we mentioned the guy that I just went ahead and I became Captain Buzzkill for, and that's Spencer Strider. He's had an awesome rookie year for Atlanta, and this is someone that's still fairly new to their starting rotation. And I also just realized that before I dive into Spencer Strider, this is the second time that I've done it again to our producer, Joanne. We have Twitter bets. So let's go ahead before I talk about how.
Oh, I thought we were doing that after, but yeah, let's do it now.
Bad job by me. But let's go ahead and reveal where our BetSided community is betting today. So what is bet number one? It's our guy Beers and Bowties. Reed, he was bummed out that we were not on the air yesterday. Had a lock for us, but he's going back. Anthony DeSclafani over 3.5 strikeouts and -137. As a Braves fan, I know when we are in trouble, don't sleep on this guy. Hashtag chop on. Not wild about the juice here, but small money never hurt. So, yes, Anthony DeSclafani going up against the Braves. The Braves still in that upper level. I don't believe they're tops in baseball anymore in strikeouts, but I do believe they're right near the top. So, yeah, anytime you're taking overs against Atlanta Braves lineups, especially when they're inconsistent, lost 2 out of 3 games against Chicago, it's hard to go ahead and fade that play tonight.
Yeah, I did this right up on BetSided. I ended up, because I don't want to step in front of, and I know you're going to talk about Spencer Strider, I don't want to step in front of him. I do kind of lean the Giants. They just lost a heartbreaker to Atlanta last night, 2-1, but I like the under quite a bit. I agree with Beers and Bowties here with DeSclafani. he had ankle inflammation, so he hasn't pitched since April, and his ERA looks a little bloated, but maybe he had a bum ankle, and his FIP was almost a run lower. So
Yeah.
I think you're kind of gonna like he's been out for 2 months now, so maybe it's time to heal up. He was great last year, had a career year. I'm not sure if it was a blip or not, but I like, especially at this low of a number. I know the Braves are a hot offense, but I think this is way too low. I agree here, and I think you're gonna see. I know you're on Strider, so I'll leave the handicap to you, but I think you're going to see another low-scoring game between Braves and Giants tonight.
Yeah, as far as DeSclafani goes, his strikeout per 9 is the second best number of his career, even better than his breakout year from with the Giants a season ago. So maybe it's just a question of whether or not he'll get the innings in that he needs to be able to get to that 3.5, but especially against Atlanta, who can be very up and down. Like you said, they're one of the hotter lineups in the league, but losing 2 out of 3, including getting shut out against the Cubs that had been giving up like 19 runs and 12 runs in their last several games. You just kind of have to find the right time to go against them. So I do like that play on DeSclafani quite a bit. We also have one more from our great BetSided Twitter community. What is the next bet on the board? It's our guy Cody. Javier Baez, one of my former favorite players from the 2016 championship Chicago Cubs. It's going under 0.5 hits at plus 185. Has the matchup against Rich Hill at the age of 42. 42 years old for Rich Hill. 2 for 14 in his career with a walk, 5 strikeouts and 15 plate appearances. 6 out of 15 plate appearances where the ball wasn't in play. He's hitting 200. He has a 5-game hitting streak, probably why it's plus 185, but failed to record a hit in 5 of 6 prior games. So here's my only concern with that, because yes, the numbers overall are reflective of that being really, really good value, plus 185. The problem is that Javi Baez, for as long as I've watched him, and Reed, I know you got a little taste of Javi last year in New York, he is as streaky as it gets when it comes to just overall plays. When he is hot, like, I know he's having a terrible year, but if he's hit a couple home runs in a row, I'll take him for daily dinger. Like, that's just because of the type of run that he gets in. And then all of a sudden he'll go from having 7 games where he's hitting about 465, like a weighted on base of like 450, to just striking out 4 times in a row, golfing at pitches that are 20 feet out of the zone. Baez, you kind of have to roll with the good and just deal with the bad. And so he's actually somewhat locked in right now. I don't know, Cody. Like, I get the play, but I actually would probably go on the other side here. I do think Javi's likely to get a hit against Rich Hill, who's actually been very hittable this year.
So when the Mets traded for Javi Baez, I wasn't super on board with it. He was like, when the Mets were debating of getting one of the 3, he was last on my list. I was never a big Javi fan. I know, like, exciting player, electrifying player, but like you mentioned, super volatile. You never know what you're going to get. I mean, he hits sick home runs, like makes great plays in the field, but it's like give and take with him. So I'm not a super big Javi Baez fan. I just love Cody's. Like, that's good handicapping right there.
Great handicap.
That's how it's done. You know, he's pulling out the numbers. I love the plus 185 play. You know, I'm with it. And again, like, if we're taking a prop like this, I'd rather take the under at plus 185 than the over, especially with this Tigers offense. It's probably only going to get 3 at-bats.
Right. Yeah.
So,
3, maybe if he's lucky, he gets 4.
Yeah. So,
God, I think about the fact that the Cubs had offered him about $180 million to stick around, and what a disaster that could have been for really any of those guys. You know, Baez.
Rizzo's playing well.
Who's that?
Rizzo's playing well, but he just doesn't
play well.
But
Rizzo's perfect for Yankee Stadium.
Oh, yeah.
He's had terrible road numbers, and he's completely changed his swing so that he can hit the ball at Yankee Stadium. Like, he would have been fine in Chicago, and you can make an argument that he was sort of that leader of the 2016 team. Again, probably a conversation for another time. But yes, Cody going with the under at plus 185 for Javi Baez. Really good number, but with Baez, I don't know if I can necessarily get behind it because of how streaky he gets. All right, so Spencer Strider. We talked about him from the beginning, realized I got a little bit too ahead of myself. I will go back to Spencer Strider here. I like his under 6.5 strikeouts at home against the Giants. Was initially at WinBet at plus 105. I was able to find it a little bit later on today at plus 114. So Strider's strikeout rate, Reed, is just under 14 strikeouts per 9 innings. In 44 innings this year, he has 68 strikeouts. Mm-hmm. The problem is, and I know that he's coming off of a dynamite performance, had 11 strikeouts last time out, 8 the previous time. Those were against bad teams. Had the 11 punch-outs against Washington, 8 punch-outs against Pittsburgh. But prior to those 2 starts, he hadn't thrown more than 4.1 innings in any game this year. And now you're talking about a good lineup in San Francisco. They're middle of the pack in strikeouts, but here's the other issue with Strider. The Giants are the second best team in baseball in walk rate this year. They're getting on base via the walk 10% of their at-bats. Only the Dodgers have a better walk rate than San Francisco. Strider has a very high walk rate per 9 innings at 4.30. So you're talking about a guy that's matched up, that's not going to go many innings against a very patient team that's only middle of the pack, one of the better teams in the National League. I just think the hype is too high right now. And while it might feel like a low number because of the last several games, I still have to go under here. I just think it's the wrong matchup at the wrong time.
Yeah. I bet O'Neal Cruz to win Rookie of the Year when they called him up at like 14-1. So I hope Strider gets just shelled here. Mackenzie Gore got shelled over the weekend. So I'm a big O'Neal Cruz guy. And yeah, I'm with you. I hope Strider strikes out no batters and lets up 9 runs before getting pulled. So yeah, go fade Spencer Strider the whole way. Sorry, Joe, for I know you're a big Spencer Strider fan.
Yeah, big old Spencer Strider fan. So that's my MLB bet of the day. Reed, I know you have 2 on the board. Tell me who you like tonight.
Yeah, so 2 best bets. Then I got 1 in the Mets game. I wonder what it's going to be. So we'll start with the Marlins -132. I got against the Rockies, and Marlins playing good ball. I think the Marlins are one of the more underrated teams in baseball. Top half of the league in weighted runs created over the past month. They're just playing good ball. Just played the Mets to a competitive series. End up getting away from them on Monday in a rainout makeup game. Now they're going to Colorado. I think they're going to crush the ball. I think Colorado's offense is overvalued, especially in terms of sound offense. They're 5th in on-base percentage, but they're 25th in weighted runs created. So they're not generating – they're getting on base, but they're not generating a lot of run-scoring chances. They're a little banged up in the lineup too. I don't like their starter in Feltner, and I like what the Marlins starter Castanado has been doing since moving to a starter role. He's been good out of the pen since getting called up. Got his first start, 6 2/3 shutout innings against the Phillies. Now he's getting a Colorado team, ground ball pitcher. I like the Marlins as short favorites. I know it's on the road, but I still like the Marlins to get it done there. Next game, we're sticking with me, right?
We are. Yeah, you got
cool.
One more, and then I'm going back to the hoops world.
All right, cool. Now an underdog, Chicago White Sox +112 against the Blue Jays, and I think Alek Manoah is significantly better than Kevin Gausman. If we're talking like Cy Young favorites, Gausman's been flirting with disaster, and I know his underlying metrics look great. His FIP is like half of his ERA, so maybe he's due for positive regression. I don't see it, especially against this White Sox team that's still kind of trying to find its footing. I think it's a good spot to get him. Gausman hasn't made it past the 4th inning in 2 of his last 3 starts, so he's going to go short. He's going to give it to a below-average bullpen. I think this White Sox offense at home after a tough series against the Astros is going to come out ready to play. And let's look at the other side. Dylan Cease leading the bigs in K rate, striking out nearly 13 batters per 9 innings. Cease is a stud. Yeah, he hasn't allowed an earned run in his last 4 starts. I mean, the guy's been absolute dynamite. And again, I know the White Sox, they've fallen short of expectations, but the Blue Jays, they just got worked all weekend against the Yankees. Now they're on the road. To me, they don't deserve to be a road favorite here. I think this is closer to a pick 'em. So I'll take the home underdog at +112 for the White Sox. Anything plus money to me, I think is a little off. I think Cease is a great buy here. And I'll note that the Blue Jays have a great offense, but give me Cease. He's just been dynamite over the past month.
Yeah, Dylan Cease's ability to strike players out has cost me a couple times when I've gone to fade some of his props and strikeouts. I mean, you're talking about somebody right now that is, like you said, leading the slate other than Strider in strikeouts per 9 innings. He has just under 13. Walk rate's a little bit high, but again, just absolute dynamite stuff. And the Blue Jays have shown a propensity to chase a little bit too. So if he can go deep, I think that's the issue because the White Sox bullpen, which was supposed to be a strength for that team, has not been this year. They've been dealing with injuries. They've been dealing with some inconsistencies. Liam Hendricks, like a couple weeks ago, basically said like he's been pitching with a UCL injury since 2008.
Yeah,
that's interesting news to hear. And then on the Miami side, I certainly like the play as well. They always kind of feel like you got to get them at the right time as well. But Daniel Castano, he's not giving up home runs. You just don't know a whole lot about him. But
lefty pitcher too.
What's that?
Lefty pitcher also. I always like getting lefties.
Yes, very much so. So I do like both of those plays, but especially on the White Sox side, again, it's just I have my trust issues with them because I still think La Russa is putting them in non-advantageous situations to lose games. But a conversation once again for another day. I'm going to switch over to the WNBA side, Reed. I got a couple plays on the board for tonight as well. If you want all of our WNBA plays, by the way, you should head on over to BetSided. Both myself and Donovan do our favorite WNBA bets on the board each and every day. You can check that out over at betsided.com/fansided. So the first one I like is a total. The Chicago Sky and the Las Vegas Aces, probably the game of the night in the WNBA between the top three teams. Connecticut probably sort of sandwiched in there as number 2, but the Sky's clear number 3, Aces clear number 1, and I like the under 176. It's a really high total for a WNBA game. Most of the totals you'll typically find are in the high 150s, low 160s range, and I get it. Their offenses are really good. They're both number 1, number 3 in points per game, but they also defend. These are also teams that are top 6 in opponent points per 100 possessions, and you also have a Sky team that plays at the 5th slowest pace in the WNBA. So it's contrasting styles. The Aces are going to push tempo. Them and Indiana like to go up and down the court as much as humanly possible. Chicago will slow things down. They'll have a few more set plays. Now they can score, but it's also in Chicago's best interest, Reed, to try to slow down the Aces, like make them a little bit uncomfortable. The last time these two teams played in Chicago, the Sky were not able to slow down the Aces in the second half. Did a good job in the first. But that game ended up hitting the under because Chicago just slowed things down and tried to mess with the timing of Las Vegas. So again, I think these are two teams that also played uncharacteristically bad in their last game. I think this is a showcase game for both. And I think you'll see a better defensive effort on both of those two team sides. So I like the under 176 out in Las Vegas tonight. Other game I'm on in the WNBA, nice little big underdog at home in the Atlanta Dream. They're at home against the Dallas Wings. I suppose if you want to jump on the Dream at +4 as well, you can do it. But they had a really
take the money line. Come on.
Yeah, just roll the dice. They're back at home. They had a really rough road trip. They traveled to Seattle and then Phoenix, had to go from the West Coast to the East Coast to play a really good Connecticut team, then back to Chicago to face another good team in the Sky. So they've been off for a while to be able to rest up, prepare for Dallas. They played their last 4 games at home, let multiple games slip away late in the fourth quarter, including 2 bad losses to Seattle, but they started to fix their efforts over the last couple games. And the Dream, here's what's interesting too about them, Reed, is that they're still, by defensive rating, the second best team in the WNBA, and it's only by 0.1 points. The Mystics have the best rating, but Atlanta's had that all throughout the course of the season up until their last 2 games. So I think they're going to start to figure things out. They're well rested. They're back at home where they played much better basketball all year long. Dallas has had a tendency to just let these games get away from them, and I could see the Dream putting on the defensive effort that they need to be successful. Ryan Howard getting back in a rhythm, and I do like Atlanta to upset Dallas as a +150 money line underdog tonight.
Okay. I like it. And I like anytime I do bet slip with you and Donovan, there's always an Aces pick. So I feel like I know the Aces like the back of my hand at this point, because there's always, we're taking the Aces as favorites or we're taking their unders. No, you guys take over sometimes actually, but I think it's funny that the Aces have really become like this like lightning rod of a team. They are just opinions everywhere on them. And obviously they're still seen as the title favorites, right?
Without question.
So a lot of betting activity, but I like that contrarian under. Hopefully you don't get another bad beat against you though.
Yeah, that was an issue between the Aces and the Wings. That was in that Wednesday matinee where it was a meaningless foul with about 22 seconds left that cost me an under. If I'm not mistaken, too, the Aces got 57 points in the second half against Dallas after not doing a damn thing in the first half. Felt great up until the very end where they really let it get away. All right, so let's go over best bets of the night before we talk a little NBA draft. On the board for my guy, Reed Wallach, he is going with the Miami Marlins, -132 against the Colorado Rockies. Also, the White Sox as a home underdog against the Toronto Blue Jays at plus 114. I am breaking the hearts of Joe Summers and Spencer Strider fans everywhere across this great country. Under 6.5 strikeouts today at plus odds of plus 110. Got him at plus 114 a little bit earlier. Atlanta plus 150 in the WNBA. Get that big money line underdog against the Dallas Wings. And another WNBA play for your guy, under 176 between the Chicago Sky and the Las Vegas Aces over in Vegas tonight. All right, Reed, you ready to talk a little NBA draft? You ready to get everything moving ahead of Thursday night?
Please.
All right. So if you're looking on the board right now, there's obviously plenty of betting options. We'll focus on a few because I know that you've locked in several. But I kind of want to start things off and give you my top three of where I expect the top three to go, because that's the intrigue, right? We know it's going to be either some sort of combination of Jabari Smith out of Auburn, Paolo Banchero out of Duke, and then Chet Holmgren out of Gonzaga. So right now, the Orlando Magic hold the number 1 overall pick. There's still a possibility that they could trade that pick. But let me tell you where I like them to go. I have Banchero going number 1. I think the movement from anywhere from plus 2,000 all the way down to plus 195 right now is substantial. And I know that Smith has been the odds-on favorite for a long time, but I'm thinking about the movement that we saw in the NFL draft with the number 1 overall pick. And now his name completely escapes me. But it was the
Trayvon Walker.
Trayvon Walker. Walker was sort of in that same range for a long time as Banchero was. And then if you follow the money, you saw the movement and it came consistently. And all of a sudden, I think we're going to blink and Banchero is going to have minus odds on the board. I just think there's too much steam going in that direction for me to start to feel like he's not going to be the pick. Now, will he go to Orlando? I'm not necessarily sure. I think there's still a possibility based on how that front office loves to draft length and size and versatility that maybe they move out of that spot and perhaps go down a couple spots to try and pick Holmgren, who I think they like. I just think they realize that if they take him at number 1, why not try to get him at number 3? Because I have Jabari Smith at number 2 to Oklahoma City. He had talked about how much he loves that organization, how he really got connected with Sam Presti, likes the building blocks that they have over there. So I like Smith to go number 2. I saw odds for that come in and around plus 150. And then let's say you have the Magic perhaps move to number 3, Holmgren there, plus 550. A bit of a reach, but perhaps a switch to number 1 makes a lot of sense for them. So Banchero number 1, Jabari Smith number 2, and then Holmgren number 3. Tell me if you think I'm off base here.
Not off base. Why? This draft cycle has been pretty weird, and I kind of fumbled the bag with my number 1 pick portfolio. I'm looking, well, not necessarily, because I'm still not sold it's going to be Jabari Smith. I'm not sold on necessarily anyone going number 1. I don't think anyone really knows, and that's why maybe I'm like getting too galaxy brain, because I look at this stuff all day for weeks and months at a time and trying to figure out what's real and what's not real. And it's a little difficult when you have the Orlando Magic and Oklahoma City Thunder at the top, who are notoriously tight-lipped organizations that are sending out smoke screens. Here's what I make of the Paolo Banchero move, who I said right after the lottery, I actually think he should go number 1, and I bet him at the front at like plus 600. He obviously drifted out and stuff, and I made other bets since, but he was out to like 22 to 1.
Yeah.
The reason why I think he drifted so far out is because people had kind of like groupthink and confirmation bias that it was going to be Jabari Smith, when the truth of the matter is we don't know who it's going to be. So what happens when you don't know it's going to be? There's not a 4% chance that Paolo Banchero is going to be number 1. There's more like a 25% chance that it's going to be Paolo Banchero. So that was the adjustment. And I actually think that it was like a real move to like bring him down. And now I think it's almost a little too far gone. I actually don't think Pal is going to go number 1. Maybe he does, but I think if he was actually going to go number 1, he would have already leapfrogged Jabari Smith. You know, like the steam would have kept going. Like it now hit a wall, and it's like, okay, we're now actually where we're supposed to be. Right. Like this, it's kind of wide open. Maybe a slight lean to Jabari because that's what all the mock drafters say. But like, there's 3 guys in the mix here. I actually think. So I think it's Banchero, and why I also think it could be Banchero is Kevin O'Connor from The Ringer mentioned, and I'll try to keep this brief, but he mentioned everyone knows that Houston loves Paolo. everybody knows. It's the worst kept secret. Everyone knows that if he's there at 3, it's over, whatever. The same thing happened with the Rockets last year with Jalen Green, where everyone knew it was going to be Cade, and everyone's like, well, Mobley actually is like the number 2 pick, and Jalen Green was like minus a bajillion to be the number 2 pick. So it's actually been telegraphed the past 2 years, and I know 3 is a little bit different. So you also hear Oklahoma City might like Paolo actually. So are they now, is there a situation brewing where it could be a Jason Tatum, Markelle Fultz thing where the Thunder and maybe even the Magic are trying to force action from Houston to try and get more assets given up? So maybe it's Houston who actually picks 1, and it's Paolo Banchero, and then the Magic move back, and the Thunder take Jabari, and it's the Magic who end up with Chet, who they always wanted all along, like you mentioned. Right. So yeah. I do think
I feel like that's the smoke screen that makes too much sense here.
That makes a lot of sense. So I actually think so. I've been betting back. I'm basically betting this market like a stock. I'm just like betting up and down and stuff. I actually end up losing the most if it is Jabari, who is the favorite. I'm not Pat. If it is what it is. If I lose money on this, that's on me. But I actually think I'm going to come in and bet Chet. I think he makes the most sense with the historical draft profile of Weltman and Hammond, who come from Milwaukee. They drafted Giannis, Thon Maker. Chet makes a lot of sense. And I'm seeing a lot of conflicting reports on he won't share his medicals. And obviously there's a lot of concerns with a guy that big and that skinny.
Yeah.
But then I'm also seeing that he has shared his medicals and it's not that big of a deal. And that Chet was with them. Like, Chet wants to go to Oklahoma City. Well, like, Chet also spent like the entire weekend in Orlando, apparently. So like, I'm seeing a lot of smoke screens. And my biggest like antenna raising thing, and this is just me always thinking like, well, what's really going, like trying to like sift through it. So this will be my last point, but you have the GM of the Magic talking to media and basically like laughing at everyone. Like, we do a really great job of not leaking who we're going to take. Like, nobody knows anything that we're going to do. It's awesome. Like, it's great. Haha, you know nothing. Which to me is like, okay, so like Jabari Smith isn't going 1, because all we hear is that Jabari Smith is thrilled about the possibility of going 1. So all of a sudden now there's a leak that's going to be Paolo after the guy just said how nobody knows anything. Like, doesn't that seem a little misguided, right? Like, you see this market like going, that's like, it's going to be Paolo, it's going to be Paolo. Then you have the GM saying, well, actually nobody knows anything. So actually everybody knows something. Like, it just doesn't make sense to me. So now Chet is now the 3rd choice. Makes a lot of sense with their historical background. Is best friends with the guy you just took 4th overall last year in Jalen Suggs. Not 4th overall, 5th overall, sorry. Yeah. It just makes a lot of sense to me that it might actually be Chet. And again, maybe I am just over-analyzing everything. But I actually think that Jabari is the 3rd most likely guy to go 1. And I think it might be Chet.
Right. But you would agree that
confidently.
I just think that he's most likely, I think, at this point to end up 2.
I think what I think is going to happen is I think it's going to be Chet or Paolo 1, Jabari 2, and then the other guy 3.
Yes. Okay. So
I will say, on that. Last note, there is a chance that all hell breaks loose. If Chet doesn't go 1 and it's like Orlando takes Paolo 1, not Houston, and Jabari goes 2, we have no idea if Houston likes Chet. We imagine that they do because he's a tantalizing prospect, but like, what if Houston has no interest and they want to move out and someone wants to go trade up and take Jaden Ivey? Like, there's a chance Chet could take a fall. I think Chet is the most prone to slipping, I guess is the way I'll use it. And I'll help you.
So if we're looking at other potential markets here, right? If we're looking to try and see like over/under for Chet, my guess is it's probably what, 2.5 at several books.
He doesn't have one of those. Like, there's no.
He just having 7 for him.
Yeah, there's no market for that.
Okay, that's interesting, especially so many of these other guys they have him for. But if you and I were setting the odds for Chet, his draft position, would 2.5 be the right number, you think?
Yeah, and I'd probably bet under.
Yeah.
I think I would too. Like, there's just a chance he could slip. We don't know. Things like, there's so many teams that are looking to trade and stuff that there's like also, and I'm going to get into it with should I just start talking like best bets? Because I could segue it in.
I think so. Let me just do one last thought. I think the perfect scenario here is if, let's say, it doesn't go our way, where Houston trades up, they give up some further assets to go ahead and get Banchero number 1. The Magic fleece them. They get the guy they always wanted, and then additional assets at number 3. Jabari goes number 2 to Oklahoma City. Everybody's happy. right? And then if it doesn't go that way, where Chet does fall and Sacramento still decides to trade the pick, like, would that not be the most Sacramento of all Sacramento situations to go ahead and pass up on somebody with that type of upside, knowing what could be? To me, if there's going to be slippage, it's going to be another team that takes advantage of Sacramento, possibly gets Holmgren over at number 4 because they're set on trading for a veteran because they believe they're contending. It's
yeah, no, there's a lot of stuff up in the air, and I could see I think the guy most likely to slip, and I think he's going 1, is Chet. I think he has the most volatile outcomes of the draft. It seems like Jabari has a home in the top 2. Paolo has a home in the top 3. Chet, we think, has a home in the top 3. Maybe he takes a dive. Maybe someone really likes Jaden Ivey and they want to move up for him. We're thinking 4, but maybe Houston doesn't want Chet and they want to move back even further. They don't like any of them. They like Paolo.
Ivy's going to be great, by the way. I also saw a comp. Jeff Goodman was doing an interview with somebody. I don't remember who, but he comped Paolo to Paul Pierce, but a little bit more physical, more athletic, which I thought was interesting.
A little bit more physical, a little bit more athletic, a little bit taller.
Just a little bit more of everything, but like stylistically, like his ability to get any sort of shot, especially middle of the floor, outside. Mm-hmm. I thought it was an interesting comp, especially for somebody that could go number 1 overall in this draft, especially when you consider Pierce right to be, when you consider Pierce to be kind of still a bit of a throwback player. But plenty more conversation ahead on the NBA draft. Make sure you guys are following us as well as checking out the work over at BetSided. We're going to have plenty more content ahead, including tomorrow morning, where you'll get everybody's perspective on the number 1 pick, including who we believe will go number 1 based off the odds, as well as who we believe everyone should take. So definitely stick around for that as well. But Reed, as you mentioned, it is time for the game of the night between the New York Mets and the Houston Astros. Last check of the odds over at WynnBET Sportsbook tonight. And there are still a few minutes left to vote on our poll as to who you are betting for the game of the night, whether or not it's the Mets at plus 134. So we've seen a little bit of movement away from the Mets on the money line and more towards Houston. They are at minus 136. Total has stayed put at 9, with the under at minus 110, as well as the over now. A little bit of interesting odds going on over at WynnBET. The over is plus 105, Reed, but the under is minus 110. So maybe they're running a little bit of a special right now on the Mets and the Astros. Regardless, it certainly works out in favor for anybody that's looking to bet there. But tell me why you are on your New York Mets as an underdog, and are you concerned at all that the odds have moved in favor of the Houston Astros from where they were earlier when they were at plus 113?
No. The reason why I'm fading the Astros, it's not even a bet on the Mets, it's fading Jose Urquidy. That's it. Jose Urquidy. Easy fade on Urquidy here. ERA nearing 5. His FIP supports that. He's just not been that good of a pitcher. Getting a ton less swing and misses this year. The Mets are second in weighted runs created plus since the calendar flipped to June. This is, again, there's not much separating these two teams. I think they're both damn good baseball teams, but Urquidy just has not had it all this year. I don't think he's worthy of being a home favorite, like being priced like this. And you look at the Mets, Trevor Williams actually strung it together as a back of the rotation arm for the Mets. Sometimes he hasn't been able to give him a lot of length, but if he could get through once or twice of this batting order, the Mets are going to pass the ball along to a solid bullpen, top 5 in ERA. I see more options for the Mets here. And Houston, Urquidy has just been really prone to blowing up, in the Mets, they're able to win in all facets. They can hit the long ball in a hitter-friendly Minute Maid Park. They're getting on base at a high clip. They're finding holes in the defense. I think the Mets, with Urquidy on the mound, are a much better team. I wouldn't say they should be road favorites, but this is more of a pick 'em than anything. I got there's a question about Williams, but give me the Mets at plus money all day.
Yeah, I think
as underdogs this year.
Yeah, they've had a really, really nice run as underdogs. And Williams, even though the record isn't great, he still has a 3.53 ERA. You mentioned Urquidy, definitely a lot of struggles. The ERA right at 5, and has had some issues with his control as well, and a lot of hard contact. But I think I'm going to go with the under instead. 9 feels like a bit too much, especially with Houston and their whole propensity all season long to play to the under. They are the best under team in all of Major League Baseball. Their unders have hit at just under 68% of their games. They're 44, 21-1 in unders this year at home. They have gone 18, 10 and 1 in overs, or excuse me, in unders this year, hitting at a 64.3% clip. I just feel like, especially with Urquidy, yeah, he's had some issues, but he does tend to pitch better at home. The Astros, for whatever reason, have just been that team where even if their starter gets rocked a little bit, they're just not going to score enough runs consistently.
Mm-hmm.
Their offense, despite having a lot of those top metrics, have actually not been great at actually getting a lot of runs across the board. They tend to disappear in long stretches. And maybe Trevor goes out and shoves tonight, but 9 feels like a lot of runs for a team that is consistently hitting unders at home. So
I'm
to
with
me,
you.
I feel like this is one of those like 5-2 type games where Williams goes out, pitches well, or Urquidy maybe gives up a 4 spot and then settles down, and it ends up being just one of those low scoring games, despite Urquidy once again getting hurt or not hurt, but getting hit pretty easily.
Getting tagged, getting knocked around,
tagged,
shelled.
All the different synonyms you can name in the last couple minutes. By the way, our guy Cody checking in as well. He had Will Zalatoris, by the way, at 30-1. So Cody, you've had some heartbreakers over the last several.
Cody, if you're still tuned in, make sure to comment that because I know for a fact you're going to bet him at the where is it, St. Andrews. You're definitely going to bet Willie. What are his Zalatoris odds to win the Open?
25-1 at WinBet.
Everyone's going to line up for that bet.
Has to.
The same people that bet the Celtics in Game 6 last week are going to be betting Zalatoris to win out of the Open.
Yeah, but I bet the Celtics because I had the Warriors at 9-1, so it's just like a little slight hedge for me. Yes, but you're not wrong. Is basically what I'm saying. The good news, Reed, is once again the community is on your side. They like the Mets. They're fading Jose Urquidy at home, the Metropolitans, and now guess what? We get them at a better number. We get them at plus 133 over at WinBet. So we'll go ahead and dial that in for tonight. And that is our show. Appreciate all you guys for hanging out with us. Special thanks, as always, to our producer and director, Joanne. Make sure you guys stick around. Coming up in about 15 minutes, it is going to be a very fun edition of Green on the Greens. Hopefully you guys will stick around for that with Cody Williams and Savannah Richardson. She is filling in for Ian McMillan. Same channel right here on BetSided YouTube page. So for my guy Reed, I am Ben. Hope all of your bets hit tonight. We will be back tomorrow. It'll be myself and my guy Donovan Smoot for a brand new edition of the Daily Bet Slip. Until then, so long. We'll talk to you again tomorrow.